Step into the world of estate planning, probate, and wills and trusts with the Del Toro Law Podcast. Leading the way is your host, attorney Peter Del Toro.
Ever wondered what trusts are and how they can benefit you? Dive into our enlightening interview with a seasoned will and trust attorney who will unravel the complexities of trust. Welcome back, everyone. Garfield Bowen, co-host / producer, back in the studio with attorney Peter Del Toro. Peter, how you doing today?
Great, Garfield. How are you?
I am well. So, Peter, what are trusts and what benefits do they offer?
That's an interesting question. Trusts are it's a legal document which sets up a fiduciary agreement between parties. There's different types of trusts. There's two main ones we'll talk about. There's a living trust, which most people will use in estate planning to avoid probate when they pass. So they're able to pass on their assets to whoever they designate without having to go through the court system in the probate system. And then there's other types of trusts that are irrevocable trusts that function a little bit different. A lot of time those are used in some estate planning for estates that are very wealthy individuals, and they also provide some asset protection.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about control over the assets. Discuss how the trust offers the grantors and in terms of financial over legacy. You want to speak on that a little bit?
Sure. So when we set up a trust, the trust has three components. You mentioned one there, a grantor. A grantor or a settlor is the person that actually sets up the trust. Then the second component of a trust is the trustee. It's the person that takes titles to the assets that the trust will hold. Then the third component is the beneficiary of the trust, the person that the trustee is holding those assets for their benefit. So in the two type of trusts that we talked about, the living trust, what we use for estate planning to avoid probate, the settlor, the trustee, and the beneficiary are all the same person or the same couple. Let's say if it's a husband and wife, if they set up a joint trust, and that's what we call a living trust or a revocable trust, or sometimes you'll hear the term inter vivos trust. Those are all the same for revocable trust, and that just creates an alter ego of the individual setting it up. Doesn't have the asset protection, but it provides a mechanism to avoid probate when that person passes. On the flip side of that coin, more rare, we have irrevocable trust, where the settlor and the trustee are a different person. So the settlor gives the assets to a trustee, and that trustee holds them for a benefit of a third party. In that case, the settlor doesn't have control over the assets anymore. He's giving them away. So those provide greater asset protection, but you lose control over the asset. Whereas most of the time what we're dealing with, the majority of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, we're dealing with the living trust, where you can keep complete control over your assets during your lifetime. And when you pass, that trust would lock and become irrevocable, and then your assets would be distributed just like a will would. It acts just like a will, but it isn't subject to going through the court system.
Now, I know you're not an accountant or a CPA, but you want to talk a little bit about some of the tax advantages?
So in Florida, we don't have any estate tax upon death like some other states, so we don't have to worry about that. So our main concern is the federal tax limit. And right now, that's a very high limit. It's over $12 million for an individual, and double that for a couple. They can use it, both ways. So as long as your estate's worth less than that, those assets will pass to your beneficiaries tax-free. Now, in the next year and a half, that's subject to change. The law that made that number so high is due to expire. And so kind of all the accountants out there and all the attorneys, estate planning attorneys out there, are really watching to see what happens with that over the next year and a half, because that might change the game for some people. It'll significantly decrease it down to what they call historical norms, which could be between 3 and 5 million. But again, most couples, their estates are worth less than 3 and 5 million. Their main thing is getting their assets to their heirs, tax-free or as tax-free as possible.
Good stuff. The trust protections and benefit they offer. Great stuff, Peter. Listen, you have a wonderful rest of the day. We'll see you in the next episode.
You too, Garfield. You have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Del Toro Law Podcast, your source for estate planning, probate, and wills and trusts. For a complimentary consultation, visit deltoro.law or give us a call at 772-444-0101. That's 772-444-0101.